Deborah Van Valkenburgh had a sizzling career in the 1970s that saw her appear in many hit films and television shows. At a time when Hollywood was reinventing itself with bold stories and fresh faces, Deborah was one of those rare stars who stood out. She wasn't just another actress hoping to get noticed. She was unforgettable. Every time she stepped in front of a camera, there was something about her that caught the audience's eye. Her performances carried a mix of confidence and vulnerability that made her feel relatable, yet larger than life. People didn't just watch her, they remembered her. The 1970s was an extraordinary decade for entertainment. It was the era when movies took on grittier tones, television experimented with new formats, and audiences were ready for something different. Gone were the days of only glossy, picture-perfect stories. The 70s were raw, real, and daring. And it was within this landscape that Deborah Van Valkenburgh carved out her space. She became known as one of those versatile performers who could shine in multiple genres. Whether it was the drama of film or the comfort of television, Deborah managed to deliver something memorable every time. Her defining moment came when she became part of the cult classic The Warriors. Released in 1979, the film was unlike anything audiences had seen before. It told the story of rival gangs in New York, filled with tension, danger, and unforgettable visuals. It wasn't just another movie. It was a cultural phenomenon that went on to shape the way people remembered the era of gritty urban storytelling. Within all the chaos and intensity of that film, Deborah's role became one of its beating hearts. She wasn't just a background character. She had a presence that made the film richer, that gave audiences someone to connect with on a more personal level. When people walked out of the theaters, her face stayed with them, and that was the magic of Deborah Van Valkenburgh. She had that rare ability to stand out even when surrounded by noise, action, and larger-than-life characters. It wasn't about having the loudest voice or the flashiest style. It was about authenticity. Deborah's performances carried a kind of truth that audiences instinctively recognized. In The Warriors, she wasn't just playing a role. She felt real. She felt human. And that's why her character resonated so strongly. But her career didn't stop there. After The Warriors, Deborah continued to appear in television shows and other films, reminding audiences that her talent was no accident. She built a reputation for being dependable, versatile, and compelling. Hollywood is often quick to move on from rising stars, but Deborah found ways to keep working, to keep evolving, and to keep her spark alive. Each new role showed another side of her personality, another skill she had mastered. She was never boxed into one type of character, and that flexibility helped her stay relevant in an industry that changes faster than almost any other. It's important to remember that Hollywood in the 1980s was a very different place compared to the 70s. The blockbuster era had arrived. Studios were chasing bigger budgets, bigger effects, and bigger stars. Many actors who thrived in the 70s struggled to adjust to the new landscape. They had been part of a generation that focused on gritty realism, and suddenly the industry wanted glossy action spectacles. For many, the transition was brutal. Some careers fizzled out, but Deborah Van Valkenburgh showed something different: resilience. She adapted. She understood that the industry would change, and she found ways to reinvent herself along the way. Reinvention became one of the themes of Deborah's career. While others clung to the idea of being the same star they once were, Deborah explored different avenues. She didn't let herself get trapped in one definition of success. She found new opportunities, and each one allowed her to continue showcasing her charisma. And this is one of the reasons her story is so inspiring. She didn't just enjoy a moment of fame and then fade away. She built a life, a career, and a legacy that went beyond just one film. Fast forward to today, and people still wonder about her. They still search her name, they still revisit her performances, and they still want to know what Deborah Van Valkenburgh looks like now. That's the mark of a star who left an impression. Decades later, her work continues to spark curiosity and admiration, and here's the answer. Yes, she looks different now, as time inevitably changes all of us. But what hasn't changed is the spark that made her unforgettable in the first place. Her smile still carries that same warmth. Her eyes still shine with the same charisma. The presence that once lit up movie screens hasn't disappeared. It has only matured. When you look at her now, you don't just see the star of the past. You see someone who has lived, who has grown, and who carries the wisdom of decades of experience. And in many ways that makes her even more compelling today. Because true beauty isn't about being frozen in time. It's about growth, resilience, and authenticity. And Deborah Van Valkenburgh embodies all of that. Her story also holds an important lesson. In a world that constantly chases what's new, it's easy to believe that once your moment in the spotlight is over, your value disappears. But Deborah proves that's not true. Real talent, real charisma, and real presence don't vanish when the industry shifts. They endure, they adapt, and they inspire. Her journey reminds us that success isn't about clinging to one version of yourself. It's about reinventing, about finding new ways to shine, and about carrying your spark forward no matter what. Think back to when you first saw The Warriors. Maybe you were drawn to its action, its unique style, or its raw energy. But chances are you also remember Deborah Van Valkenburgh's role. You remember the humanity she brought to the story, the way she balanced out the chaos with her grounded performance. That's why decades later, people still talk about her. They don't just remember the film, they remember her in it. And this is what separates stars from icons. A star might shine brightly for a moment and then disappear. An icon, however, leaves a mark that lasts for generations. Deborah Van Valkenburgh is part of that second category. She's not just remembered for being in The Warriors. She's remembered for what she brought to it and for the way she carried her career beyond it. The best part is that her journey is relatable, even to people outside of Hollywood. We've all faced moments where things changed, where what once worked no longer did. We've all had to reinvent ourselves at some point, whether in our careers, our relationships, or our personal lives. And Deborah's story shows that reinvention isn't the end. It's a new beginning. It's proof that resilience and adaptability matter more than clinging to the past. Today, when fans look at Deborah Van Valkenburgh, they don't just see the young star from the 70s. They see the full story. They see someone who embraced change, who found ways to keep her spark alive, and who continues to inspire even without being constantly in the headlines. And that makes her journey even more powerful. So the next time you think about The Warriors or the vibrant energy of 70s Hollywood, remember Deborah Van Valkenburgh. Remember how she captivated audiences back then, how she continued to build her career, and how she carries that same spark even now. Because her story isn't just about the past. It's about proving that true charisma, real presence, and genuine resilience never go out of style. And that's why people still ask, decades later, where is she now? The answer is simple. She's right here, still inspiring, still remembered, and still carrying the same light that made her unforgettable in the first place.